to record this. So let's see. I hit record and it says, okay. So a couple of things that are on this slide so far. Do y'all see? Yeah, I see the little recording flasher now. I just had to make sure. Resources available. So some of you have been to some of the workshops. Oh, great. Barbara and Jonathan are on. They can see the PowerPoint, but they're just having a little bit of a technical difficulty. I'm going to go ahead and recopy for them the phone number in case they want to call in for sound. Okay. So there's the number if anybody wants to call in for sound. And because we do need for you to be able to talk to each other. That's a big part of this webinar. So if you've been to any of the earlier interactions that we've had around co-requisite learning supports, then you know that we like to put up a box folder for you so that you can access the resources even after the event. And so this kind of marks the launch of the statistics work that we'll be involved with over the next couple of years. And so if you've got your cell phone handy, you might want to take a picture of this slide so that you have that link to that box folder. And then as we go through today, there's already some stuff there. And then in October, we'll add some more things. And that'll just stay there when you're ready for it. So that is the purpose for today, is to prepare for that October meeting, kind of overview what's happening overall, but really the survey and then this webinar are helping us all get ready for that workshop. My name is Connie Richardson. I am from the Dana Center. I do have 30 years in education, both K-12 and higher ed, but I've been at the Dana Center for about 7 years now, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the Dana Center in a minute. But basically, after I get through rambling here, I'm going to kind of be in the background running the breakout groups and that sort of thing. But we do have some expert statistics and learning support and statistics learning support folks here, and we'll be in Macon in October running the workshop. And so Roxy Peck, you'll hear from her today. You may recognize her from Cal Poly. She does a lot of professional development around the country and around the world. And Brittany Mosby is the Director of HBCU Success at the Tennessee Higher Ed Commission. You'll hear from her about midway through the webinar. And then Marcus Pomper, formerly from Roane State Community College in Tennessee. So you may have, he's really active. He's been really popular on the conferences in the last few years talking about their statistics and learning supports. But he has just over the weekend moved to Indiana. So we're really glad that he was able to join us today. Probably ran in from unpacking to join us today. So we're glad to have Marcus. So as I said, some of you know the Dana Center and our work already, but because this work in the stat path, many of you have been teaching statistics already, but having it as an Area A math course is somewhat new. So you might not have been involved in the Dana Center work before. So we've done a lot of work in Georgia over the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, somewhere in there, both K-12 and higher ed. And in a lot of different areas, but focused mainly around math pathways and curriculum and pedagogy interactions as well. The higher ed work really focuses around this vision. I'll give you a minute to read that. And we think that the statistics path and learning support work is in Georgia just really aligns with both of our goals so well, because statistics is the concept and content that every student needs at some point in their career, and definitely in their personal lives. And so students being able to take statistics as their quantitative credit is really powerful. The learning support piece definitely enables students to make more timely progress toward their completion of certificate and degree. And thinking about how when students were previously in a developmental sequence, that a lot of those developmental instructors spent a lot of time helping those students become stronger mathematical learners, that now those students are going to be directly in that college level course. And so, but they'll still need that support, right? Both in learning support and reinforcing that in the college level course. So helping them become mathematical learners and being able to apply those statistical skills in their careers and personal lives as they move forward. So that's who we are. And now some of you are together in a room. Some of you are borrowing someone else's computer, or you've got an institution name on your image. So we'd like to really document everybody that's here today. So if you would go into the chat box and enter your name, your institution, and if you stop and hit enter, then it's gonna skip everything down. So just all in a row, name, institution, and what you're doing in the stat path work, okay? And then they're coming in fast and furious. This is great, thank you. So you'll be, I'm sure you already know some of these folks, but if you don't, you might meet some of them in breakouts as we go through the day. Meanwhile, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Roxy.
All right. Well, thank you. As Connie already mentioned, the goal of the webinar today is to set the stage for the work that you're going to be doing between now and October, and also to provide a foundation for the October in-person meeting to work on the learning supports. And so we're going to be doing a number of things in the webinar. I lost my slide here, but we're going to...
Sorry, that was me.
No, that's okay. So first we're going to, a number of you have filled out the survey, and we're going to talk a little bit about the survey results to begin with. And then we're also going to, I'm going to turn it over to Brittany, and she's going to do an overview of the work that's going to be taking place between now and implementation over the next couple of years. And then Marcus is going to talk a little bit about preparing things that we're hoping that you will be able to do between now and the October workshop. And then finally, we're going to gather kind of current questions, concerns, and things that you would like to see addressed in the October workshop. Okay, so next, Connie. All right, so as Connie mentioned before, we did send out a survey, and we asked institutions to complete the survey, mainly so that we could see where folks are in terms of designing their statistics course, and then the associated learning supports, and then thinking about implementation. Want to thank everybody who completed the survey, and as Connie mentioned before, but not everybody was on at the time, that if you haven't completed the survey, it's not too late. She put a link in the chat box, and if it is possible to get somebody from your institution to fill that out, it would be sometime between now and September 5th. It would really help us plan for the October meeting, because it will allow us to create some working groups for the October in-person meeting of institutions that are in similar places in terms of their development. So in terms of the survey results, we ask about the statistics course in particular, because that's, even though the work that the Dana Center is doing with the Georgia institutions is around designing the learning support course, the work really starts with the statistics course, because you have to have that has to be well developed in order to design appropriate student supports. And so in asking about the statistics course, we had 12 institutions so far that have responded. We asked about learning outcomes for the Statistics 1401 course. 7 indicated that they had already developed the learning outcomes for the statistics course, and 5 were in process of developing. And so it looks like that work is underway. We also ask about the math or stat 1401 course and when that would first be offered. We know that probably all of your institutions have been offering introductory or elementary statistics in some form or other, but many of those have been in Area D, and they've been under a variety of different course numbers. So the new thing is the common course description, the numbering, the common numbering of 1401, and for many institutions, the moving of that course from your Area D to Area A. And one of the things that you will probably see as that moved from into Area A happens is an increased enrollment in that introductory statistics course. So that's something to be thinking about and to be preparing for. In terms of the learning supports, some of you indicated that you would be implementing those or piloting those in spring of next year, others in fall of next year, and some were not sure or didn't have a target date. So it looks like a lot of people are implementing the Statistics 1401 in the fall and then adding the learning supports in spring or fall of next year. So that gives us kind of an idea of where institutions are. Again, for those of you that haven't filled out the survey, it would be helpful to get this information from you as well. Another thing we asked about in the survey had to do with the content of the statistics course. You're familiar with the common course description now for the Math Stat 1401, which you see here. When I first saw this, I thought, wow, this is really broad and general. You could almost do anything you wanted given this this description, and so that the fact that it's very general leads to a lot of flexibility in what people are doing or able to do in that 1401 course. And so that probably explains why we got such diverse responses to the content questions in the survey. If we take a look at the next slide, one of the things, if you noticed in the common description, it just said things like confidence intervals and hypothesis testing, but didn't specify what kinds of methods are included there. And so we wanted to get a little bit more information on what methods are being taught. All of the methods that we ask about that you see here on this slide are things that are typically found in a general introductory or elementary statistics course. What we found in terms of the survey responses is that there was a lot of variation in what people are doing in terms of the content of the 1401. Everything from some institutions saying we're just doing one confidence interval for one proportion and one hypothesis test for one proportion, to other institutions that are doing all of the including all of the methods that you see here. The reason that we're talking about this at this point is that first of all, to design appropriate learning supports, you need to know what the content of that 1401 course is going to be. But also, as you're working with partner disciplines to identify which disciplines will be advising students into the statistics pathway, and also talking to them about the appropriateness of the course for their program of study. A lot of these things are, as I said, they're typical for most introductory statistics courses, and so some of your partner disciplines may be expecting some of these things as part of that introductory course. And so as you start working with your partner disciplines over between now and the fall, I think it would be good to have discussions with the partner disciplines in terms of the content of that 1401 course. The other half of the common description The first part that you saw that we just looked at were what were listed as uniform requirements, which I assume means that everybody is supposed to include those in their 1401 course. And then there was this additional topics that suggested that you could choose from these things, and that would be 20 to 40% of the course. Again, I would encourage you, we saw great, again, a lot of diversity in terms of which of these things are being included in the 1401 course. Some of these are pretty standard for an introductory statistics course, and so again, we would encourage you to have discussions with your partner disciplines in terms of making these choices in terms of what to include in that course. In the October workshop, we aren't going to really be talking about the content of the 1401 course because the focus is on designing the learning supports, but all of the content issues need to be sorted out prior to being able to design appropriate learning support. So we would encourage you to continue those discussions, and for those of you that have your learning outcomes in progress, to be thinking about these issues. All right. The other thing that we asked about was pedagogy and technology. And again, we got a variety of different answers. That was not unexpected here. But in terms of instructional mode or pedagogy, we found that with just a few exceptions, the predominant instructional mode for the introductory statistics course was lecture. There were, as I said, a few exceptions that indicated lecture might only be about 50%, but 90% was a more typical value in terms of 90% of the course being conducted in lecture mode. And for technology, the dominant, again, with some exceptions, but the dominant technology being used in the introductory statistics course was graphing calculators. Now, the reason that we ask about this, again, this is about the introductory statistics or elementary statistics course, but it's really important to think about these things because there's a lot of evidence that lecture is not necessarily the best instructional strategy, especially for the learning support course and for courses where you have diverse student audiences, diverse in terms of mathematics preparation, for example. And so we'll be talking about pedagogy and technology in the October workshop in the context of the learning support course, but as you're designing your 1401 course as well, I think it's worth thinking about these things because there's also evidence that is also true of the introductory statistics course, and it also, you don't want to have a big mismatch in terms of pedagogy and technology between the 1401 course and the paired learning support course. So again, I would encourage you as you're working on your 1401 statistics course to be thinking about these things. And then we'll revisit them in October in the context of the learning support course. And so that's a little bit about the what we saw in the surveys. Now what we're going to do is ask you to think about things and make a few notes for a couple of minutes while Connie breaks you up into breakout groups. When we put you in breakout groups, that we're going to ask one person in the group, and that's the person whose first name is first in alphabetical order. So alphabetical order by first name. That person is, you have to determine that person is going to be the reporter for your group. The person whose first name is last in alphabetical order is going to be the timekeeper to try and keep you on track. And what we're going to ask you to do once you get there is to introduce yourselves and then consider these questions. What about in the context, if you think about the survey results, what surprises you? In particular, do you see implications for the next steps at your institution and any questions that you have? So we'd like you to take maybe 2 minutes now to just make some notes for yourself on these questions. And then when we, at the end of the 2 minutes, Connie will put you in breakout groups to do that.
if you have a cell phone and want to take a picture of these questions, it might help you once you get into your group. As you can see, I'm having a little bit of trouble with the breakouts, and that's why the PowerPoint keeps jumping out of presentation mode. So Roxy and Brittany and Marcus, y'all are going to get an invitation if you'll just ignore those invitations, okay? And everybody else, I see that there are some questions coming into the chat, and so you might discuss those questions in the group, and then you definitely bring them up when we come back out of breakout, okay? So I am going to, if you're on the phone, I don't have a way in most cases to tell which phone goes with which camera, and so you might accidentally so just talk to the people that you have audio with, okay, even though you may be able to see different people. All right, so here we go. You should have an invitation on your screen.
I think my questions are more around how is this going to be implemented? Are they going to have specific majors targeted for each of these 3 different Area A math classes? And should we focus on making the statistics course surround the particular majors that are going to be geared in this area? And I also have a question about, so what are going to be the students' options in their Area D course as well? Since statistics is typically the class that most students take in that area, is it just going to be another science in a lab that's going to be recommended for them, or are they going to be pushed to take another math class or the programming class in that particular area?
Okay, I think everybody's back.
I'm going to close it and listen to the people that louder than this. My phone is not very loud.
Roxy, I think everybody's back now.
Okay, do you want to go back to the slides, or?
Can you not see the slides right now?
Oh, it's not in present mode. Okay.
Well, I would say, I don't know what the problem was earlier, that it kept popping out of presentation mode.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm going to leave it like this so that we don't have to worry about that.
All right. Okay, well, welcome back, everybody. We apologize for any little glitches or mishaps in getting people into their breakout groups, but we'd like to take just a few minutes now and kind of hear back from each of the groups. So it looks like the first group that I see is Camille, Marilee, Sharon. In your group, who was the reporter, and would you like to summarize your discussion?
Yeah, so I was the reporter and the transcriber for our group. So what surprised us about what was going on is we weren't really surprised a lot, but mainly the implications of what the survey said is for the USG, it seems like we'll all do different things for that course to try to bring all that together. Exactly for the implications, we kind of were wondering what exactly should be in it. And also, what hours should it be? 2 or 3 hours or 1 hour for that co-rec? And questions we have mainly about what role is the Dana Center going to play, and what do we as institutions need to do to be successful?
Okay, thank you. Well, we're collecting these comments and questions, and we'll talk about them a little bit at the end of this. So thank you, Camille.
Thank you.
Sorry. Okay, so group 2 was, let's see, I don't see first names here. I see Hannah, and so Hannah, who was the reporter for Breakout Room 2 with Hannah and A. Yeager?
I guess we were.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So I guess our main questions were proper use of technology in the classroom, as well as like balance with having high weight upon lecturing versus not being a good situation for people of that level. And then we discussed also how to how is it going to affect like bringing in the support courses with the statistics courses, actually implement that.
Okay, thank you. Breakout room 3. Let's see, I have a phone number, Cohent, Sykes. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Cohen, was there a breakout group with Cohen?
No,
Or
we had a breakout group with no discussion. We were not able to really connect. I asked a couple of times and nobody, I guess, could hear.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I'm not sure who else was in my group. I know I was emailing with one of our Georgia State people, but we couldn't hear each other.
Oh, okay. Well, that's unfortunate. We'll see if hopefully that will be fixed in the next breakout group.
I hope so. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I said, no, I just wanted to let you know, so maybe it'll be fixed for the next one. Thanks.
Okay, yeah. So somebody named Sykes or Cohen or Bruilette, was anybody able to connect in that group?
That was the group. I'm sorry. I'm Cohen. So that was the group I was talking about. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, so we didn't. All right. All right, so let's take a look at, let's see, the next group. The next group, Christine, Marcus, Sherry.
Sorry, unmute myself. This is Christine Ludewise. I was the reporter for our group. And so we talked more about some of the common topics covered across all sections and sort of the ways in which instructional modes, mostly lecture-based, are prevalent at the institutions that we're at. We talked about the ways in which the departments, the math department in particular, are coordinating with different departments and working on some partnerships to figure out if it will fit the needs of disciplines as we're building out both the course and maybe other courses and then the learning or the support course that goes along with it. We didn't really get to questions, but I'm going to throw one out, which is what are the implications of Gen Ed redesign and or what we're doing with the statistics pathways. So.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question for the system folks at some point here. Okay, so we have, let's see, group 5. Well, that says Alzari, but I thought we heard from them, May and Koffer.
Yeah, that was us.
Okay, that's for some reason I have you listed again as.
No, I'm Billy May. So.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we were mainly talking about the list of topics that are covered, and even out. We were only 2 of us that managed to connect in the group, but we had very different results from what our institutions cover in their statistics course, and the technology that is used. We were both within the list that was covered in your slide before, but we used some the same and some different. And just where we are as far as the development, that we've already developed most of our support course. It's 99% done because we had to start, we're doing it in the spring, so we had to get it going through the UCC process to get approved. So that's about as far as we got. And I thought the question about how the redesign of the Gen Ed is going to impact all this was an excellent question as well.
Thanks. Well, you may be a good resource for us in the October workshop, since you'll be one of the institutions that's quite far along in the process then. Okay. So, thank you, Billy. Let's see, Beth, David, Keisha, that group.
Hi, David Newton. And Beth and I kind of collaborated on taking some notes. So let me report out. We had a hard time kind of reviewing or talking about the survey since we couldn't get back to it to kind of look at it again, the survey results. So what we really focused on were kind of some general questions that we had. And one of them is just some concerns that since statistics courses have already existed, in curriculums and sometimes in other areas of the core, moving statistics into area A, some concerns about level of difficulty and understanding the kind of transitions that will need to take place, because for students that really are entering, students who probably have had no background before and so need to think about the course in that way. And maybe that might shape some of the methods that are used or limit the number of methods that are used in the course. The other had to do with kind of what are going to be the common frameworks. For example, will there be common learning outcomes that all of us will have to follow, or are those up for us to design on our own? Same kind of questions I would imagine as we've thought about it here in terms of, does the learning support component have to have a certain number of credit hours associated with it, or is that kind of up to the discretion of each institution? So those are just some of the general questions that we had.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's see, we had a group with Jennifer, Linda, Rosalind. You're a reporter.
This is Linda. We had some technical difficulties, so only 2 of us were able to chat. But we mostly just since we couldn't see the slides to review what the results were, we were going on what we had made notes about. But just talked about the different types of presentations and talked about use of the graphing calculator. We really didn't get to the point of questions because we were working so hard to try to get everybody connected.
Oh, sorry about that. All right, and then it looks like we have one more group, Brian, Melanie.
This is Melanie, so I'll try to summarize. We finally got a few people into our room. So I think we have some of the same things others have brought up in terms of wondering about the variability in the course, the initial 1401 course design and how to play across transferability for students. Looking at the testing cutoffs, what are the testing cutoffs for going into learning support? Should they be different for a stats learning support versus a quantitative reasoning learning support? And then the numbers of students involved, how many students we think will test into this. And the last thing we kind of talked about were the materials and the technology and the variability in that across all the courses that will be involved in this pilot.
Okay, thanks. Did I miss any of the rooms? Did everybody get a chance to report? Okay, well, I think, I think we heard some interesting things that will definitely help us set an agenda for the October meeting. There were also a couple of questions that were raised in the chat box, and some of which were mentioned in the reporting out. One had to do with the variability or the diversity in the content, and asking about whether we would expect to see further standardization of the Math 1401 course. And Barbara from the system responded to that in the chat box, saying that she's not expecting further standardization, and if it were to happen, it would be led by the Advisory Committee on Mathematical Subjects. So I don't think it sounds to me like there's not going to be any kind of enforced standardization, but the issues that were raised about transferability are something that maybe would be worth thinking about. And I think it also came up in terms of the institutions that are currently working with partner disciplines. I think that one of the things, once the disciplines that are going to indicate statistics is the appropriate pathway for students in their programs of study, I think it would be really important to work with those partner disciplines, given that you have a lot of flexibility in that common description, it would allow you to really look at what would meet the needs of the partner, of your partner disciplines, and best serve students that are in those programs of study. The other question that came up both in your discussions and in the chat box had to do with the graphing calculators and technology. The introductory statistics course needs, I think the bottom line is you're going to have some form of technology. And whether that's graphing calculators or access to a statistics software package, and there are a number of good online statistics software packages now that students can use. I think that's a decision that the departments are going to have to make in terms of designing the statistics course. It's really difficult to do a good introductory statistics course without some sort of technology for analyzing data and also for illustrating concepts. And I'm kind of an advocate of the best available technology. If students have access to computer software, statistics software, that's what I would use. But the reality is, for many places, the graphing calculator is the best available technology that's capable of handling the content in statistics. And so I guess somebody raised the issue of they often were bringing their calculator with them because when statistics was in Area D, they had another math course before that where they got their graphing calculator. And I think that if graphing calculator is what you decide on, it just may be that instead of getting it in the first math course, this may be where they need to acquire their graphing calculator. But technology is something that you definitely will need to discuss, and also again discussing with the partner disciplines. If students are coming from the introductory stat course into a research methods course in their discipline, they may have some input, or may want to have some input on what that technology that's used is. So anyway, those are my thoughts on what you said, and we'll listen to the playback, and if you have any additional comments or details, please do put them in the chat box. We'll be collecting all of this and using it to help organize the October meeting. Okay, well, I think where we are now, if we go to the next slide, kind of you can see what we've done is we've done the review of the survey results. And so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Brittany, who's going to do an overview of kind of what's going to happen over the next couple of years.
Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. Like Connie said, my name is Brittany Mosby, and I'm here in Tennessee currently at the Higher Ed Commission in the Bureau of Academic Affairs. But prior to that, I was at Pellissippi State Community College, also here in Tennessee, and worked on our co-requisite support course for statistics. And so that's what's brought me into this work, and I'm really excited to be with you today and with the Dana Center for this work. So we'll talk a little bit about sort of the high-level timeline, what we've kind of laid out as a path forward, and then we'll get ready for being all together in October. So this summer, what you have been doing in some cases, or what we'll do a little bit today, is identifying those programs or those departments or those partner disciplines that are going to be served by this statistics pathway. So we find that it's usually easiest to choose the path of least resistance when you're getting started with these types of pilot things. We recommend in September that you have departmental meetings to discuss your progress thus far. And then, of course, in October, we'll get together at Middle Georgia State University in Macon to do a face-to-face workshop on some of these topics. There's a deadline November 12th to have your program submitted to the System Office, your Stat Path program. And then in December, we'll do institutional check-ins. with piloting happening over the course of the spring, a review of those pilots next summer 2020, and then a full implementation in fall of 2020 or next year. This is roughly the timeline that we also followed in Tennessee, about a year and a half of ramp up into full implementation. So it's possible, a tight timeline, but we're committed to help in any way that we can. And then, of course, spring of 2021, a system-wide review of that implementation. So we'll go back and we'll look at sort of our lessons learned and best practices from across the system. So that's our very high bird's eye view of the timeline over the next 2 years. But what we're going to do in our next breakout session is that first bullet, and that is identifying those partner disciplines. So we're going to follow kind of the same rules that we did for the first breakout group, and I think Connie is working to make sure that everyone will be in a group and can be heard. But if you'll identify a reporter and a timekeeper, we're going to take about 10 minutes to discuss what progress, if any, has your institution made in identifying partner disciplines to work with. So who, what led you to those decisions, and what are your next steps in terms of that partner discipline?
Okay, so first of all, I hope Brittany didn't oversell it there. I hope I managed to get people into breakout groups where you can also talk. So I tried. So if you want to take a picture of this question, again, I'll give you a minute to do that. What progress have you made in working with partner disciplines to identify programs? There's also been a question come in about the cutoffs for learning support. And Jonathan from the system office has responded that that it's the same criteria as the modeling or quantitative reasoning course, the 1001 or 1101, that should be the cutoffs used for learning support for statistics for 1401. Okay. All right. So progress made working with partner disciplines to identify programs. Everybody cross your fingers. Here we go into breakout. We've got some people coming back, but there's still some people in breakout. So I'll let you know when all the breakouts close.
I kind of don't want people to just bring papers in October.
30 seconds.
Online.
All you really want are topic lists.
We don't need your policy going to the rest.
Right.
10 seconds.
Yeah, I can see that.
I would let my.
Okay, everybody should be back.
Hey, welcome back to the larger group. We're going to take a few minutes to share out what you've discussed in your breakout session. So I'll call on your group and just ask your reporter to sort of summarize the points from your discussion. So Camille, your group, breakout session 1, would you like to share?
Sure. We talked a lot about what we're using in that class that we can draw from like 1001 and 1111 of how to bring those concepts that are normally seen there into statistics to make our students stronger mathematically. Mm-hmm. And we talked about the where we're at and where we need to go, what stages we're at. One of our group members was further along than the other 2 group members, but basically coming up with a game plan of how we should proceed.
Mm-hmm. Great. Did your further along member have sort of lessons learned to share?
Yes, she did. If she wants to share, she can.
Oh yeah,
All right.
I can jump in. But in terms of the identifying programs, our school for Georgia Gwinnett, that seems to be happening more at the dean's level than it is at the faculty level. So that kind of information I'm hearing like second and third hand about what's happening. But we had a little bit of a conversation about, you know, what topics from Math 996 I was kind of pulling in from our Math 1001 book or our Math 1111 book to supplement the course. That was kind of what we were talking about in terms of that discussion.
And have you been taking sort of a just-in-time, I know that's kind of an outdated term, approach to
So Brittany, like you, I also I was in Tennessee during the...
Okay, so you're the Columbia State one, okay.
Yeah, I was at Columbia State. So I'm bringing that experience as well. And it's a little different because we don't have the ALC 100 guidelines like we had in Tennessee. I feel like we need more flexibility in the situation to do things like just-in-time remediation and focus on the actual content that we need to focus on.
Right. Yeah. I feel this will probably be something that we dig into deeper when we get together in Macon. So thanks. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Group 1. Group 2, looks like Aaron would have been the reporters.
Yes.
All right.
You want to say it again?
It really, because it's an area one, an area one course for us, we didn't really see the how it really applied. There is one concern as far as having, I guess the pathway for stats, for more advanced stats classes. In what areas they would fall under. I don't know if you think.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, I think Group 3 was an empty group. So Group 4, Christine?
So really we were talking about, we actually talked about our curriculum processes quite a bit and some of the barriers that we put in, and then talked through, I wasn't actually taking notes because I wasn't the reporter, but we were talking through sort of the different ways we are seeing information in committees and sort of the ways in which like Georgia Southern is doing the pilot, and so the rest of the group talked a little bit about when they anticipated actually implementing what we're planning on doing. So
okay, great. Right. All right, awesome, thank you.
Can I ask real quick what the discussion was around the barriers place?
So mainly we were talking about the curriculum processes at our institutions that are all very similar. And so how do we move something that's an initiative much more quickly through a process so that we can implement it more quickly, benefit students.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So I thought you were talking about something more on the student side, but that makes perfect sense. Thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. Okay, next from Group 5, that's Keisha Brown and Billy May and Scott Sykes. Who would like to report out from your group?
This is Scott. I can report out. We really didn't have any idea whether we had reached out for client disciplines. We think it might be done at a higher level at most of our schools, but we weren't really clear on what was happening with that. And one school was further along in the process, so they talked a little bit about how they had planned all their stuff for the spring.
What, any highlights from their plan for the spring?
Billy, you want to take that since it was your school?
Yeah, we were just talking about the support course that we've as far as we are of creating it. But I am on the support course side of things. I don't know that much about the statistics course itself. We have somebody else who's doing that, but he couldn't be here today. So just how I started getting the topics together and the activities together for the support course.
Okay, great.
So that was how I spent my summer vacation. Yeah, first department meeting, that's what I had to report on. So that's what I called it, how I spent my summer vacation.
Lots of fun. Okay, thank you, Scott and Billy. Alrighty, the next group looks like Beth and David and Victoria.
I'm Victoria, and we talk about a few issues here. The first one we discussed whether we had conversation with partner disciplines to identify programs for which the statistics pathway is appropriate. Majority of us agree that we didn't have enough conversation, if we ever. Some of us had in that direction. So we suggest that our math faculty will start working on program maps, and that's from all group. It's not from a particular institution. And we have to adjust the degree programs to the idea having statistics in area A. Also, so we continue that conversation. So
hold on a second, Victoria. If you are not speaking, could you please mute your microphone? We're getting a lot of feedback.
Okay, where did you lose me?
Okay, no, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm talking about that we really suggest that our math faculty need start working more on program maps to adjust their degree programs with the fact that we're going to implement statistics in area A. That's one statement. Then we had questions about standards for the program, what you want us to submit in November. We need to have some more structured basically recommendations. What do you want us to have there? I guess maybe October meeting will help with that. That's brought us to understanding we're a little bit lacking information to submit the program in December. That's from all our group. So, and we want to know after implementation of this new stuff with the statistics in area A, are there already any criteria for reviewing our performance? Can you suggest what we need to, of course it kind of refers to standards for the program implementation as well. So what do we need to know to submit the program?
Okay, great. That's actually, your questions are a good segue to our next group, who is the system group. So that's Barbara, Jonathan, Rosalind. Do you want to offer an answer to some of Victoria's questions about the November submission? Let's see.
Brittany, would you please ask if anyone from our group want to add something in addition what?
Yeah, sure. And if Beth or David or DSC would like to add anything to that report out from group 6.
I have nothing to add. That I thought was very good.
Okay, great. Okay, so Jonathan, Barbara, Rosalind, can you all hear us? Michael Hammock.
So we could hear Roz, we could not hear Michael. So Michael did not benefit from our conversation, which is a shame. And I didn't benefit from Michael's conversation, which is a shame. And Roz always benefits from my conversation.
Can you, and Connie, we might get to this, but a little bit more about the submission that the schools will do in November for the pathway that's happening on November 12th.
Sure, you want to go to that now? We can talk about that.
I don't want to steal your thunder, so if we'll get to it.
No, not stealing thunder. That's what I want to keep to where we are. I want to keep to the program.
All right, well, go ahead.
Yeah, we have time to go ahead and do that. Mm-hmm.
So again, it's a good point. So November 12th, there's two parallel tracks that are going down. They're happening right now. I reached out in the spring to all of the regions advisory committees for the non-STEM disciplines, inviting them to make a recommendation for whether or not stats was an appropriate math pathway, first math for students following that discipline. We've had, because this came out at the end of the year, we've had about half of them come back. And with one exception, they've all said, yes, sure it is. So I will be actually this week, possibly today or tomorrow, sending out a reminder to those RACs to ask them to sort of consider this. We'll get recommendations about which disciplines would statistics be considered as an appropriate first math. So that's the first step that happens in this process. But the second step is on the campus level. Two things have to happen. One is there's a campus conversation that we imagined occurring. It's sort of been alluded to with partner disciplines about whether or not for the program at your campus, at your institution, is statistics the recommended math. And this is somewhat of a different conversation with the RACs. RACs are looking at this globally as whether the content and material seems appropriate, but a recommendation, again, this is a college course, is a course in the core in an area A1. We actually, outside of the STEM disciplines, don't require an area A1 math of any particular stripe or flavor. So this is more a question about best fit recommendations. And we're inviting you to, by November 12th, to have those conversations with partner disciplines at your institution to say for which programs is statistics the recommended math. In other words, would this be the advising guidance given to students to put it on their pathway? And equally, if that's the case, what would their pathway then look like? And so this, Barbara Brown and I were talking a little bit ago about the fact that this also means including what happens now if you had statistics sufficiently in area D, what do you now feel is the next appropriate step for that student? Is it another area D class? Is there a class that may not be in area D, but maybe should be pulled out of area F or non-core into that area D to provide a statistics pathway? So these are not documents that have to have gone through system governance, local governance. This is where we would like you to send us. There'll be a little more detail on how you will do this, but this is where we want to know which programs are you intending to align with statistics. In other words, a recommendation for statistics, and also what does that program look like in terms of statistics going all the way through. We're going to get to an area D conversation a little bit later today, and I don't want to sort of jumble through the program, but that is what we're looking for. So understand that by each campus, just having statistics in a bucket as a math course is really not the way we want to advance this. This needs to be aligned to a program of study, and the program of study is the partner discipline is sort of identified that this statistics course at your campus is fitting its needs.
I want to emphasize, Jonathan was saying that by November 12th, you don't have to have taken all this through the governance. If you're going to want to move a new course into Area D, you will have to get started very early on in the process of moving things into governance. And I think based on my inventory of what's offered in Area D, I think some of you are going to want to move some other courses into Area D that aren't currently in there. And I will also just speak to core redesign. I do not believe any of this work will be wasted with core redesign. We're still going to have the equivalent of Area A1 math, and I believe we're going to have some follow-up courses in there. So I don't think you'll be throwing away any effort on this. I think this will translate very easily into the redesigned gen ed curriculum.
Okay, great. All righty. Thank you very much. We've got 2 more groups. Breakout room 8 had Linda and Rui.
So this is Linda. I'm at Kennesaw State University. Rui does not have a microphone, so we can only communicate by chat. And I'm a little further ahead than he is. He is still communicating with departments. I've already met with the social sciences, education, and health sciences departments to get their input. They're all excited about the options. I don't know that anybody that has health science right now is looking at saying this is the recommended pathway. So they are excited about the other programs are very excited about the options and especially about our ideas for the second course.
Good. How did you identify those programs, the health sciences, education, and social sciences?
Through running the impact reports of looking at what majors use our course currently as an Area D course. Those were the departments that we discussed with.
Okay, great. All right, thanks, Linda. All right, and finally, if we can hear from Brian, Melanie, Harish, and the group MGA guest.
Okay, I'll go ahead and the rest of the group can chime in. I think, again, some of the issues have already been mentioned, but part of our group, I'd say about half of our group had already contacted some folks in the social sciences and behavioral sciences programs, looking at psychology, sociology, and business as potential places where we would start implementing this type of stats path to begin with. And also meeting with our advising folks and talking about changing the program maps. So that started in the initial stages, I think, for about half of us. We did identify 3 issues. Jonathan spoke to one of them, and another group spoke to one of the issues earlier, so I'll just hit on those 2 briefly. One was the planning for Area D and how that has to go, and the parallel planning that has to happen for that Area D course. And then also how these processes run through our own schools and the curriculum processes and the procedures that have to be gone through, and how we don't want that to be an impediment, but that we foresee that there may be some time issues with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing that we had was how do we plan for enrollment for these courses? Because it could impact, of course, how we do Math 1111 and Math 1001. So how do we plan for that as we move forward? And I know in my own institution, we've had conversations about the credentialing of staff or math faculty, to be more specific. We have a lot more instructors that teach Math 1111 and Math 1001 than we do our stats class. And so as that stats class ramps up, how do we handle the credentialing and the training and that type of thing for those classes?
Yeah. Great topics. Thanks, Melanie. Okay. Did we miss anyone? Anyone would like to chime in with their thoughts on this breakout session before we move on? Okay, great. Well, thanks so much, and I will look forward to seeing you all in October. And now I think I'm going to hand it over to Marcus. Is that you next?
It's me next.
All right, take it away.
All right, thank you. So I'm Marcus Pomper, and I'm going to talk about ongoing work. And many of the topics have already been discovered by the breakout groups as topics or as items that need to be addressed. So the first one on my list here is program map adjustments, and that was brought up by the discussion group earlier. Really what we're looking for here is identifying which programs should recommend that students take statistics as part of their program, and that should be reflected in the program maps that go with this particular program. So rather than stating, take the Area A course, which is somewhat generic, my suggestion is that a program map where statistics is a recommended course says take Math 1401 in your first semester, and then in parentheses maybe, or see an advisor to discuss alternatives. The reason why I bring this up is the advising season for the next fall semester starts probably in March of next year. So you want to have the program maps adjusted well before the advising season starts so that the students can be advised appropriately. And leading up to the advising season, obviously you need to train the advisors so that they can give the correct advice to the students. So you're not just preparing a course that is new to your department, you're preparing a course that is new to your school and that fulfills a specific role in your school. So you need to inform all your constituents that this course is there and what its role is. The program maps and working with the advising staff is a key component of that. And the second item is the campus curricular review. So we're probably going to be creating a new course that fulfills the learning support mission of Math 1401's course. So that is something that has to go through curricular review on your campus, and it has to be done in time for the course, first of all, to be offered and to be available for students to take whenever you're doing your implementation. So the time to do that probably is in November or December at the latest of this year. So it has to be approved in campus curriculum and go through the process there in time to be placed in the appropriate catalog for the next academic year. And our next item is Area D planning, and that has come up several times already, so I'm going to keep it short here. The question is, if you have already a statistics course in Area D, and the statistics course is now suddenly moving to Area A, what are you going to put in its place? And that is a discussion that needs to happen on your campus, and where you need to discuss with your program chairs of the programs that need statistics, or possibly a second statistics course, of what should best go into this new area D that is now being vacated by a statistics course that's moved up to Area A. Last, I've already mentioned, the advising protocols. Be sure you work with all constituents on your campus, including the academic advisors or the student success coaches, and inform them what the role this new course plays and what the requirements are to take the statistics course and the co-requisite learning support course that goes with it. So you want to make sure that that is done in time for the advising season to begin as new students come in. The last bullet point is banner considerations. So don't get caught off guard with your enrollment management system. What you want to do is make sure that, first of all, you have the courses, the learning support course and the statistics course entered properly. And secondly, if you require students to take a learning support course together with your statistics course, you want to make sure that there's some mechanism for enforcing this. So you want to make sure that these courses are tied together significantly so that a student who is required to take the learning support component with the statistics course cannot simply drop one course without dropping the other course. You want to make sure that there is a mechanism within Banner that allows you to do that. Then let's go on to our next slide here. That's the preparation between what should happen between now and the next time we meet, which will be for the October workshop. During this time, you want to be able to work through the worksheet and the planning toolkit that the Dana Center sent with you. And in particular, you should develop and revise and finalize the learning outcomes for your statistics course. So this is work that should be done within your department in December. Then looking forward to the implementation phase, we will need to estimate the number of students that will take this new statistics course, because this will allow you to predict how many sections to schedule of the new statistics course and of the new learning support course. And possibly it will negatively impact the enrollment in other Area A courses, so you may have to schedule fewer sections of those. So this is a consideration that should be taken into account before you do your scheduling for the fall semester of next year. So that's probably going to happen in February of next year. So you want to be prepared for that and be able to predict how many sections of course you will need to put on the schedule. Then the last item is don't underestimate the amount of professional development that you will need to put on for your faculty and for your adjunct as well. Because teaching statistics is a different animal than teaching college algebra. So if you have had faculty that have been teaching intermediate algebra and college algebra for the last 15 years, 20 years, and now you're suddenly asking them to teach statistics, you probably want to provide them with good professional development opportunities in order to make a smooth transition to this new paradigm, to this new model of general education in mathematics, and to a new model of learning support. And lastly, you may want to revisit or visit again the Gazy report that was shared with by the Boehner Center, in particular the first 6 pages of this report. And let's go on to our next slide then. So this is the last breakout that we have scheduled here, and what we want to hear from you here is what are your questions and what are your concerns? And what we would like you to do is, as you discuss this in your breakout sessions, is that every person who is in a breakout enters their question in the chat box. We'll go later through those chat box comments, and this will allow us to target our visit in October exactly to the concerns and the questions that we have. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to the breakout sessions.
Okay, so you can reiterate questions and concerns that you've already voiced, or you can just, discuss new ones if, if something we've said has actually brought on new concerns. You can discuss those, but we just want to get these documented so that we have them as we plan for October. So I'm going to send you back into breakout, and we'll call you back in 10 minutes. People are starting to come back, but we do have some people still in breakout. Got about 30 seconds until they close. And I think everybody's back.
If they're available all the time. If we have
Okay, Marcus, you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Okay, are we all back?
I think so.
So, all back. I hope you had a good breakout session. Just let me invite you again to type all your questions into the chat box so that we have a record of what your concerns are. And in order to debrief the breakouts, let me just ask from each group whether there's any question that we need to answer right now that that we can help you with. So group one, that was Camille and Mary Lee, and Sharon, and somebody with a 678 area code.
Not that I can think of that we can get answered immediately, but we did have questions we were going to add to the chat box.
Please do. We'll try to incorporate all those questions as we prepare for the workshop in October. Then group two, that is Ayega, CG, Tilmay, and Hannah. Any questions immediately?
No questions. I mean, there was a concern expressed for the use of elementary statistics courses being used as a replacement for essential algebra skills.
Yeah. Let me say that, I'm a mathematician and I'm a convert. When I started at Roane State in Tennessee 5 years ago, I was equally concerned, but having seen how the statistics works as a general education course, I feel confident that it's a good idea to do it. So I'm not sure whether that helps alleviate your concern, but I had the same, and I feel your pain. But I really believe that that's the better way to do it. Our next group is room 4. That is Christine and Sherry and 2 others.
So we didn't have any questions that were urgent. I think we put a couple in the chat box already. And so it's more sort of long-term solutions that we would hope that this group would work together to provide.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Our next group is group 5. That is Keisha and 3 others where I only can the last names. Any immediate questions that we need to answer or could answer? All right. Then group 6, that's Beth, DSCC, Linda, and Victoria.
We've put the questions in the chat box, it looks like twice now. The same ones that we've been talking about earlier with the issues about what's going to go in Area D, how do we figure that out, and then what goes in learning support. But those aren't really right this moment kind of questions.
Yeah, I think they're a little bit harder to tackle. So, but that's a good, starting point for discussions, possibly on your local campus and the department. Group 7, that is Rosalind and Jay Hull.
So that's system office. I think we're pretty much in the business of having to answer the questions.
All right.
What to do now?
Okay, looking at my list here, it seems nobody was in room 8. So let's skip to room 9. That's Brian, Melanie, and 2 others.
This is Melanie. I don't think we had any immediate questions. I think they all came through in some of the earlier discussions, and I put the one in the chat box that MGA had brought up about the implementation of COREC.
All right, very good. And again, that was the last group to call on. So if you have any more questions, please type them into this chat box, and I'll turn it over to Connie again.
Okay, thank you, Marcus. So I do want to thank everybody for coming, and you were just a great group, really engaged, and my apologies again about any technical difficulties that you might have experienced. Brittany, Roxy, Marcus, and I will all be there in October and look forward to visiting with you face-to-face. If you have any questions between now and then that you think we can answer, I'd like to kind of curate those so that if you send them to me at my email address here, then I can figure out who might be best to respond to that question. There is some information on the Complete Georgia site. There's a dedicated StatPath page there, and I would imagine that some of these tools will be posted there. And Jonathan is responding to some questions in the chat if you want to take a look at those. Before we do wrap up, though, I want to go visit that box folder that I told you about. And so I'm going to put in the chat box and see if I can get these to post. Let me try this again. I posted it, but it doesn't seem to be showing that. All right, I'll have to try again in a minute. So let me get this out of the way. But I started off, what I can do is go back to that opening slide and remind you about the box folder. So again, those of you that were here at the very beginning of the webinar, I suggested you might take a picture so that you have a copy of that URL. So I'll give everybody a minute to do that if you didn't get a chance to do it earlier. And then in just a second, I will go to that box folder and show you what is there. So let's see if we can get there. I hope I didn't just mess somebody up taking a picture. That's what that sounded like. So in the box folder, what you can see is the kind of planning toolkit that Marcus talked about. So that's the first thing. And this is really what we'd like for you to do when you have those departmental meetings that Brittany mentioned in September, that you kind of work on filling this out so that when you get to the face-to-face in October, we kind of know where everybody is, what are the areas where you specifically need help. So it really kind of prompts you in all these different areas of, you know, assessing student readiness, what, you know, content, preparing faculty, how are you going to assess your program, and what questions. So as you, and somebody asked about how do we estimate number of students, you know, that sort of thing. So do some initial planning around that, so that you're not trying to brainstorm a lot of stuff in the moment in October. And then that way we can kind of build on it when we get together face-to-face in October. So that's the first thing that you'll find in that box folder. And I've put pages 1 through 6 of the GAZE report that we'd like for you to refresh on at least those first 6 pages. I did go ahead and post the full report as well, so you don't have to dig that out from your files back in 2016, that you can find it right here. I've posted today's slides. I've posted the link to the survey. If you did not respond to the survey yet, we would still like for you to go ahead and do that. And then the Dana Center has a toolkit for people implementing a statistics pathway with support. And we're kind of releasing a draft for use with you guys, and we'd really enjoy getting some feedback from you over the next year and a half or so. So that toolkit is there for you to take a look at if you find it useful. It's there and available for you. Let's see. Roxy, Brittany, Marcus, can y'all think of anything else?
I can't.
No, I think it's been productive, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in October.
Jonathan, Barbara, Roxanne, what about you guys?
Thank you very much for all for joining us on this. I appreciate it. Looking at the questions in the chat box, these are things that we will be answering. If we haven't answered your question, and it seems like we should have answered your question, we will hopefully be doing it. We'll be sending out an email tomorrow that will address some of these things. But again, please keep in touch and stay in touch with Barbara and me on this as we sort of march towards this program. We really appreciate everyone's support and work on this and the honest consideration of this process. Thanks.
Okay, so we have about 5 minutes. We'll hang around if anybody wants to hang on and chat, but otherwise, thank you all so much. Go enjoy your evening.
Thank you all very much.
It's not evening on the West Coast, Connie. It's just lunchtime.
You still get to enjoy your whole afternoon almost.
That's right.